Director Arthur Perry, Assistant Secretary Robert Uten,
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer, Vice President James Fairman, President Michael Schaefer. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments? No one is here from the public, so we'll set aside public comments for the time and go to item number C1. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as you recall, the board had a discussion about this item almost a month ago, and had some more questions and directed staff to bring this back with some other options. All of the board members have visited the President Pump Station, so you have a good visual of where it's at and what we're talking about. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob Hamers, and again, he's going to go over the options for you today, as well as hopefully answering the questions you had at the last meeting, and then we need to get some directions from the board on where you want to go on the station.
Rob, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And please jump in there if you have any questions. No question's a bad question. And just feel free to jump in and make sure I'm live here. Did you turn this on?
It's on. There you go. See, it's there. Just got to keep the red button down, push down.
All right, Nolani, just go
Which one is
upper
it?
left.
This one here.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, so you all visited the cul-de-sac where the pump station is. And scroll up a little bit. That's the pump station in the upper right. I'll get it somewhere. There you go. There's your cul-de-sac. So, not very many utilities in there. So, if you wanted to construct a pump station in there, you could. This is nothing more than contour line. It's not a utility. So you have a big area here, you have a big area here. However, what you would be basically doing is you would be welcoming these residents every so often with opening up a live wet well door right here. And guess what's going to come roaring out of it? Hydrogen sulfide. So we're going to come back and talk about that a little bit. But I wanted you to remember that our top complaint is odor for pump stations. And when they call, they expect action immediately. When my phone rings and it says Kevin Holcomb, that means South Coast Plaza Pump Station has odor. I pick up the phone and Kevin goes, Rob, it's getting bad out here. I go, Steve, it's getting bad out there. And that's what we do. We drive right over there and address the problem. It's very expensive to treat odor if you have to use chemicals and all. And right now we're very fortunate that we don't. So I don't want to belabor the point, but it's very important to consider. Okay? Super important. Could you go back to the attachment, please? Let's talk about a couple easier things to begin with.
Which one first, Rob?
The tributary area. Oh, good. Good, very good. Okay, you can scroll up a little. There you go. Keep going. There you go. So, in the solid border is the tributary area to President Pump Station, which is right there. Yellow means low-density residential. Brown, high-density, medium density. There's commercial. That's red. So this is the tributary area. Low density. Now, it was asked, what does the future look like for that area? Well, do you ever think that the city of Costa Mesa is going to zone that R2? It's going to look, and thank you, and secondly, it hasn't done anything in the last two building groups. This one that we're winding down right now, or the one that ended in the Slammy in 2007. There was no extra activity in there for anything. Not remodels, not anything. Just mostly people trying to make sure their property didn't fall apart, much less rebuild it or remodel it. The city could change the flavor if they unleashed enough to get 2 units on each property. Then the people come, they'd be breaking down City Hall to get a permit to put 2 units on one lot. But as long as it stays like this, I agree with the board that it's probably not going to get much denser than this old single family. And this isn't even new single family. You drive up and you see at 2880 Mesa Verde Drive, they put a subdivision in there. And everybody's going, look how small those lots are. Well, that's R1. That's today's R1. This is yesterday's. So I don't really think there's going to be much in the near future, at least not with this council. They've been peeling back the layers of overlay zones and things like that. All right. Yep, of course.
Is there, are they allowing the grandma units, what they used to?
I believe
In and out of that?
I believe that's a federal law. And is it state law?
The state law that requires them to be able to have grand units.
It is allowed. We've studied it, and we found that for some things, yes, we can't charge fees. For other things, we can charge. But the line is very clear, and it's more of a tough thing to follow than it is to figure out which ones are which.
It's an interesting point, Jim, because these homes, the Freedom Homes in this area, aren't going to go away. But there's a huge rush of younger people that buy these homes, and every Freedom Home that was built was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home. And I grew up in that tract, and so did ours. We know. So what's happening is this younger group is coming in and buying these more affordable single-family homes, and they're going to turn those into
Mansionization?
mansionizations like we do on the east side. My question would be, when they come in and do that, when they come in and add a couple of bedrooms, add a bathroom, or add a granny unit, like Jim said, do they just tie into their existing sewer, or do they have to make adjustments for the addition?
Adding 1 unit to their sewer lateral does not change anything capacity-wise.
Okay.
They don't need to go out in the street or anything, except for we make them do that.
So it is still going to increase the flow out of that
Yes.
single-family residence.
Yeah, you could say, well, it still could be doubled under what Director Ferryman was saying, because it's allowed. And I don't know which way it's going. Are they trying to waive more fees or waive less fees? It seems like more fees, but it's not very clear right now. Let's just put it this way. They're still not breaking the door down to put anything out there.
Well, we've got to also consider,
Right.
At least not in any of the five or less, or probably any of the, I mean, they're not gonna be building in Canyon Park. To me, that would be the ultimate drain, but that's outside of that
Right.
tributary area, so I don't know.
Yeah, if you're going to build in Canyon Park, you got to start with Corps of Engineering and coastal and all of that.
That's never happened.
That's what happened when we put our dry sewer in.
But some of those homes along there are gonna have to have much larger lots than typical,
This is our dry sewer.
Freedom Homes did have big lots.
yeah, they did. Yeah. But the way the configuration is there's an opportunity to have some pretty good sized lots.
Well, motors have become more efficient. What used to need 20 horsepower now needs 15. And we can always put bigger pumps in there. So we can build pumps that are bigger faster than they can put houses in there. So I don't think yes, it may develop, but it's not going to be a waterfall, more flow. It would be incremental. Okay, let's move on to another subject. We're going to take one more and then we're going to go for it. Let's go to alternate 2, please. Hello? Right there.
I have it pulled up here. Hold on.
Okay, good. Scroll down, please. Perfect. Good job, Milani. Okay.
I'm pretty good at this computer stuff, I think. Especially scrolling.
She does it all. Okay. Let's talk about reusing the structure. Question for Ray. Do we really do that? Well, we have modified this old wet well, dry well structure into submersible stations at every wet well, dry well station there is in the district, except for this one, because we've always thought we'd abandoned it. Unfortunately, we don't have the plan. So, an analysis of how to determine whether this is going up was put into the report. And it basically says you can't X-ray it, but you can infrared ray the walls, and you can go through a wall, a ceiling, a floor, and get the thickness with the infrared. You can get the thickness of the wall, the amount of steel in there, the pattern of the steel. You could, and then do a structural analysis with all of that. You could even then, if you were questionable at all, whether you were going to use that as a emergency storage vault, we could put in some more beams. We could put a beam there and a beam there, or 2 columns and a beam across. So there's a lot we could do to that to shore that up, but there is no guarantee. People do it all the time. Our bugaboo is, do we have any plans? No. Have no plans. And all you can do is analyze based on today's best methods of infrared for structural engineering and adding more strength. So no matter what you do, if you reuse it, there is some risk. There's some risk in everything. Have we ever seen a deficiently designed structure in our district
come we don't have those? Does the city have any?
No. When the plans were given to me, that plan was missing. We have like sheet 21 of 24, 22 of 24, 23 of 24, 3 of 24. So I've never seen it.
What would the city have to say about us upgrading that to existing? I mean, would they,
I don't think they would I don't think they would get involved. This would be something that technically, hearing from Alan, we do not have to go through the city for the structural design of that.
You talk about the existing one we have. Right.
Everything we're building, we do not have to go through the city.
We would if we went to the street building, would we?
Still no. It's under certain circumstances, we have to go to the city. Certain circumstances, we don't. So I have the code sections right here. And for instance, the yard expansion was a building permit. And it didn't have to do with conveying waste, storing or conveying wastewater. Because it didn't have either of those, it is exempt. So we can build it how we see it. What is that going to get you? That so that's something to consider too. Or we could just do the plan and still submit them and then have them plan second. Okay, so this was option 2, which was use this, take all the insides out and use it as storage, emergency storage, so to buy us more time. So this would be a new circular vault with 2 new pumps. This would be the valve vault with our valve. And then we would go out this end, 90 coming back, and go through that whole long new force main we built. 2,500 feet. Okay, so now we're kind of back to where we were before. Alternative 1, 2, and 3 from last time. Alternative 4 is constructing the pump station in the cul-de-sac. It leaves you 4 options. We're really overloading you with a lot of possibilities. A long staff report, small pipe. You guys get your engineering to do.
Rob, just a question on alternative 2. Why didn't you turn that around?
Pump station?
Yeah, to put the pump station to the north and the valve vault to the south. Or I suppose it could be done that way.
Yeah.
And then it would shorten up that, the connection to the force main. Not a big deal, but
Yeah.
you're constructing that force main underneath the power lines.
Yeah, the force main is already here.
Yep, that's right.
From here
No, I mean, if you just turn the valve vault around, the pump station valve vault around,
that's true.
that's a possibility, I suppose.
One of the reasons is part of the incoming flow is right here. It goes from here,
Is there a,
right there, into there.
oh, there's a sewer, oh, that's a sewer, the green thing is a sewer? Okay.
So, this is now the collection manifold.
Yeah.
One line in here.
Right.
One line in here. We used to go this way, go around, go this way, until it was an emergency, then it was back into here.
Well, you still could turn the around because the vault would be above that sewer probably. Anyway, doesn't make, that's small
Okay,
potatoes.
now Ron, you wanna go to number one, and then we'll go to three, and pass them around there. Okay, so number one was our Primo new Cadillac. Scroll up a little bit. In this design, we had to move the sewer from this side, where you just saw it a minute ago, we moved it over here, so it's wider. So, this is all, everything brand new, a full Cadillac. This is the proposed wet well, valve vault, this is a meter vault. This is just a standard manhole. We have a manhole here. It's gonna now come into there. The pipe from there is gonna come in here. It's gonna go in here. Unless it has too much flow, then it'll go back that way. And it will pump right up here.
Where's the old pump station there?
It was right here.
Is Canyon Park to the bottom?
Okay?
My orientations, so
Yes.
that's Canyon Park down at the bottom.
Yes,
Okay. So the utility lines,
this is the part.
utility lines go right across that whole infrastructure.
There's
Right?
some down here.
Okay.
The telephone poles and also here and here. So, President Schaefer, we were standing in here
Okay.
on top of the vault. To get out of there, we had to walk back up here, out the gate, up, and dogleg out into the cul-de-sac.
So that yellowish color right there is that's the access for the park.
Right,
Right, is that a-
we were gonna have concrete, we made it DG, decomposed granite, just as a more friendly surface. And the blue would be concrete. Okay, so, number three, door number three. So, this one was really number two, but we tried to save, we tried not to get carried away. So we left the sewer where it is. We're just gonna line it now. And new emergency storage vault. Wet well, valve vault. Out through the valve vault and up the hill and go. So we just tried to simplify number one. And everything is now down here, not up here. So that makes this a lot easier. So we can really do any of the four. If there's a preference, we can make it work. These are all feasible. We have cost in the, each one of these has a cost shown. Is there some type, like for instance, number one, the Cadillac was around 2.2 million. The third one, simplifying the Cadillac, that one right there is 2 million. And the one to use the existing wet well would be about 1.5 million. And then the one in the cul-de-sac, it's going to land on 2 million. But I am worried about odor control.
How often do we have to get in those stations?
I believe they hose them down once a month.
And they should, and that's the reason they hose them down once a month is, to minimize the films and things that cause the odors on the side of the
Right.
pump station.
Do we have odors already coming out of the existing pump station?
We're very fortunate that we don't. I don't know how we got blessed, but so few of our pump stations have odor. And we have next to no odor control equipment. People like IRWB pay $400,000 a year just for chemicals. No labor, no delivery.
Do you think we would have the same no odor on this in the street or not?
We have more odor than there is now. What's good about what we have now is using the existing storage vault is it's so big. I mean, this is the wet side, but it's really big. Look how big that is compared to that. So you have a smaller volume in here than you have here. And the more you pump, the more turbulence, the more everything. So we have option one with odor control designed in, but not necessarily constructed. Meaning that we would put in all the conduit and tubing and all of that, and then if we needed to, we would come back in and put the equipment in. We didn't want to depend on a design before acting the same way as we want it to act, and then it doesn't, and we don't have anything in there. So we're smart enough to know we need to put some fans in there and make sure we're okay.
Mr. President, quick question. Rob, remember, can you refresh the board's memory on the improvements we did at Eldon to improve odor controls? Like we put a vent, I think, up there, right? A vent. Also, we did some improvements in the wet well. Could those improvements be applied here at the cul-de-sac?
Yes. One of the improvements was instead of the pipe exiting 4 feet above the pumps and splashing down, we took the pipe and went down
Put a downspout in.
right on the 2 incoming lines. That was great. And then the other odor control method we have there is we have a 10-foot high pipe. So instead of letting the air go out at this level, we have it going out 10 feet up. So when the wind blows it, hopefully it keeps it up there. And at South Coast Plaza, we have a 5-story tall vent with a fan on it that was put in by South Coast Plaza, and it works great. It's up above human level on the 5th floor of the South parking structure. Now, that works great here too. However, the residences, can you go back to the cul-de-sac, which was that water? Good. So, all of these residences are, if we put a 10-foot high stack, we're in good shape. But if we go back where our station is and put a 10-foot high stack, it goes up a hill, national cul-de-sac up here, there's enough of it, is high. So 10 feet would be just about getting it up, ready to go right in their backyard. So we might have to go up 20 feet.
Plus, every afternoon almost, the wind comes across the estancia right to President Street coming off the ocean. Prevailing wind's always there.
Right.
That's coaching football, at least took the end zone. They're back.
Right, we started looking around for trees
Yeah.
when we had these things, because
least expensive one.
Correct.
Is there any reason why that wouldn't be adequate to pursue that one?
I don't think that would be a problem, because all the structures have been built very well. And the structure that we're dealing with, it's not the main structure. The pipes aren't, there's really no pipes inside that structure. There's no equipment, there's no pipes, no pumps, no anything. It's just a box. So even if there were a problem down the road, you could take it out and put a new one, right where it is.
Why don't we go that direction?
That's a great idea.
Jim, which alternative are you talking about? Alternative two, the only problem I have with it is it requires 6 months of pumping out of one manhole into the force main. And Bill Clark said that was probably the most dangerous kind of thing to try. And, Orange County Sand District, Bill did it all the time, and he did it successfully, but, pumping out of a manhole, dropping a couple pumps in a manhole and pumping it into the force main, those pumps clog up and
Well, that's
you're
why I
done.
asked the question, is there anything that would
Well,
deter us?
when we have bypass pumping, we can get pretty particular and have a redundant system. You can always say, there has to be a man out there 24/7. That would be expensive in this case. But, if you did it for 1.5, and then the thing failed, came back, put a new emergency vault in, you're up to 2 million, and it's still all right. So, that's got some definite advantages.
Mr. President.
Rob, you're concerned about odors in the cul-de-sac. You're gonna build the same pump station in the alley. The prevailing winds are always the same when they do maintenance, except the maintenance on that's gonna be substantially more difficult because they gotta get back in the alley just like it is now. You don't think that the same neighbors or the same number of neighbors are gonna be affected every time they do maintenance in the, they build it back in the alley or build it out in the,
Well, very good question. As I said, why don't we go back to number 2?
Another option to consider, Mr. President and Board, is, right before committing on any of the options, another option is, well, let's go talk to the residents out there. And let's say, hey, here's an option we were thinking. Our concern is it could create some odors. Do you have concerns with that? And maybe they might not. I think one resident that we talked to, one of the voices, he wants it in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, Scott, I was gonna say the same thing. I think you talked to one resident so far.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the alternative in the cul-de-sac is the best long-range alternative. Having been in there when you guys were working and all the potential problems we're gonna have, we could have, not that we're gonna have, in that confined area. I'm looking at the reasons we rejected the high bids, or the reasons for the high bids were telephone and innocent lines showing the street. We remove all of that if we go out in the cul-de-sac. So I agree with you, Scott. I don't see why we're not in a big rush to get this done, because one of your alternatives was to move it into next year's budget cycle.
right.
So let's talk to the residents, find out what they think.
That was something I was going to suggest. You're not under any pressure today, and every question is a good question. We still have not rejected GCI's bid, but I have been making sure that those have informal, because nothing in writing has come back.
We have a lot of faith in GCI.
They're great.
They've been, realistically, for them to say, you guys are $500,000 off your bid, that's pretty that same dollar amount, we can put it out in the cul-de-sac and remove all the hassles with that confined space.
I think we ought to do we ought to talk to Steve Kano, who maintains these pump stations all the time. And maybe you have, Rob. When you open up that manhole, or you open up that pump station to cleanse it, and there will be odors. There is at every one of the pump stations now when they do the cleaning.
Yes, one thing to consider, again, I think this will help with engagement with the residents. When we clean, during the day. Most of those residents could be at work, so they're not going to smell it, right? Because we're assuming they're at work.
We
But
could find out what their work schedule was. And
well, that's why it's important to engage with them and say, hey, this is what we're proposing to do. This is our work schedule. This is our concerns. What's your concerns? Let's engage with the residents and see if they accept it.
We need to find out how long it takes to clean it, how much odor there is when they do clean it, if there's any modern things that could be designed into the pump stations, to help mitigate the cleaning.
Twice a month instead of once. That's a
Pardon?
problem.
If you take a couple hours.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head, but we'd have to ask Steve on those questions. But we can get all that information. We can get all that information available and have that good discussion with the residents. I think it's important to engage with them.
Wow.
I think it might also be advantageous for the board to go get a sniff from the bedside, meaning, why don't you go stand on top of Eldon Station, or stand right next to it and have them open the doors.
I don't need to do that.
You got your badge?
My house, although I will be very honest with you, I've lived in our house for over 31 years, and I think maybe in that 31 years, I've noticed odors maybe twice.
Well, we're
And
coming,
they weren't coming from the pump station. They were coming from across from OCC.
From Jim's plant?
well, you know we're coming in with new piping and stuff, don't you?
No, but whatever else.
Right. I'm not letting them out the door until we got some very good bypass plans and odor control plans.
Actually, I do remember you saying something about it. The first recommendation that you gave us, Scott, and Robin, can we go over to Scott and say this?
Sure.
Reject all bids and budget in 2018, 2019. Now that Kate was here, is there something are we anticipating something for that fiscal year that would allow us to build the Cadillac plan that was our first proposal? Why would we push it off a year saying, next year we're going to be able to do the 2.6, whereas this year we can't? Are we anticipating a reason?
Well,
Whether a windfall or
no, I think.
some budget trends that would give us more money in 18, 19?
No, we typically budget around $2 million in our CIP budget. I mean, if you want to budget now, we can. We can take it out of the asset management fund. We can budget it now if you want to, but I can't speak first for you. But what's your? I mean, I think as a finance, we prefer it to be budgeted, right? You want to have it in the budget rather than.
I think the second million came in the 18-19 year, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I see what you're saying, Rob.
right.
So we're just saying increase the budget now.
Right.
Well, we'd increase it and
Actually, what I was thinking is there something in 19 and 20 that this does say?
well, we could just defer other capital projects. So the 1.75 million or 2 million, whatever it is, it would just, part of that would be part of it or a lot of it could be allocated to this project.
One other sidebar is that we also investigated using a prefab polyurethane, this guy, 10 feet in diameter. And whether we make it out of concrete and construct it in the field, or whether we buy a prefabricated one and install it, probably about the same cost. No real savings or nothing fell out of the sky. So, well, I do think that we should look at some malodorous conditions to see that why, when you get a odor complaint, why it's so emotional, because it's not good.
Stinks, that's why it's so emotional.
Right,
That is a bad smell.
right. Nothing you can do about it.
How many odor complaints did we get in the last year from our pump stations?
Frankly, we hardly even got any from South Coast Plaza.
Well, South Coast Plaza had us by the,
Well, they pay for the chemical and the stack, and we're in,
do we still add chemicals there?
no, we just use their
Yeah,
chemical.
we finally just told them to go, pound
Right.
sand.
Right,
Because every time they cried wolf, we ran, and
right,
we decided not to do that anymore because they were causing the problem.
right.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time we had a complaint on our wet wells. Usually when we get a complaint, we find out it's actually from OCSD's
Right.
line.
And we're coming on to colder weather too.
Usually when we get complaints, we what?
The ones we did get, it'd be like an OCSD line. Like I think around here in this neighborhood, we would get some complaints. There was an OCSD line around here that would. Mesa. No, Mesa Drive. No, again, that's where Eldon is. No, we with all the improvements we made over there, we don't get anything now.
Well, we can take care of the odors on a daily basis. And what Rob's talking about is when we clean the wet well. I think we should do some investigations about, what are the modern techniques,
Any order complaints on that?
if any.
Right, one of the techniques is a seal tight the whole venting system so that nothing escapes, meaning that you clean it all right there, and by the time you discharge it, it's clean.
Are you making that kind of list? Can you put financially if there's a difference to, what it would be and what it is now? Financially, so we can see financially what we're talking about.
Well, we could talk this out again. Maybe we should go back and do some more study.
I'd like, again, I think we ought to talk to the residents. Let's get a bid on the cul-de-sac one. But I think realistically, we're looking at $2 million no matter which way we go.
That's true.
Right? So let's get the most we can out of our $2 million. Again, I just can't help but, and Bob's the engineer, maybe he correct me, but I just think that putting it out in a cul-de-sac makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge imposition on the neighbors during the construction, irrespective of where we build it. Long-term safety of the public and the safety of staff in the emergency conditions. That's sort of why I favor the cul-de-sac construction. It's going to be an imposition. When we were there looking at the station, there were 2 AT&T trucks there, and they took up the whole cul-de-sac. And so when the contractor has 4 subs and cranes and all kinds of things, and getting back in that alley or building it right in the cul-de-sac, it's going to be a huge imposition on those neighbors. There's no way around it. But what we want to do is have our ducks in a row, so when we go out to the neighbors, we don't scare them with the potential of odor complaints without having, without putting the data together to say this is how long it takes to clean it. That there will be odors when they are, and we could even measure the odors, the hydrogen sulfide levels and get an idea how far downwind, those odors are.
Realistically, they're already used to a pump station in their neighborhood. All we're doing is moving it 200 feet to a different location
It'll affect different neighbors, though.
further out. I mean,
Yeah, and basically, like Art said, the prevailing winds are offshore all day long until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they switch, and then they go off, then they go
So
onshore. Yeah, did I
it
say
sounds like the board doesn't have some, feel that having it in the cul-de-sac would be a good idea?
I think that's the way to go.
Well, I think that,
Bob says, I wouldn't talk about odors so much, I would talk about the construction phase. That's what they're gonna be concerned about. 'Cause I
Right.
don't think the odor will be a
I
problem.
don't want to, we got to still talk about it. I don't want them, all of a sudden we construct the wet well and all of a sudden odors come up and they say, well, you never told us that. I don't want any surprises.
That's the focal point of the
Yeah,
discussion.
I agreed with that. Yeah, we won't make it a focal point, but we can at least tell them it's a possibility.
Well, I think we need to talk knowledgeably to them about it and give them the experiences with our 20 pump stations and the existing pump station.
Well, we have one of our best experienced board member here that knows what lives by a pump station. You can explain, what it's like to live by a pump station, and how many times you get the odors. I mean, that's, you are our star witness.
Again, though, again, the prevailing winds, when they clean that pump station, are going to cross to his neighbors to the north.
Yeah, exactly.
but like Art said, we clean them during the day. The winds are generally at night.
Oh, they start like at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Yeah, that's roughly. So, I don't know, let's get the input from the neighbors to see.
I don't think you can go wrong with getting their input.
Right.
Even if they don't like the idea, we're still gonna pursue it, right?
Right. I mean, you're giving them a chance.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't give them a chance, that'll always be a strike against you.
Well, I think informing the neighbors that we have a construction project is mandatory in any case. I think that's.
We don't need to get to the, committee together to review it, as well.
No, I don't think so. You mean CAC?
Yeah.
We need to make the call.
This is years and years of experience. And if they even know what a pump station is, they're way beyond the curve.
In hindsight, it wouldn't hurt having the CAC looking at. That's what you have them there for. They're there to help you with some suggestions. And again, that's another demonstration of having citizens' input in this project. It can't hurt having the CAC looking
I
at
don't
it.
mind them looking at it, but I don't want them to look at it personally until after we talk to the residents.
I don't think we need to.
The residents are the priority.
Sure.
No, I think they should be informed,
Yeah.
citizens, not make recommendations on, what alternatives we do.
I think that we should have a
Well, we need to look at their purpose, I guess.
I think we should have a discussion with Alan Burns about the fact that we have not rejected the bids.
So we're rejecting the bids.
We haven't rejected anything.
I know we haven't yet, but we need.
You could
that's
do
the
that.
next step.
You could do that today if you just want to reject the bids, and then direct staff to meet with the residents about the alternative. Is it for the cul-de-sac? Knowingly, if with alternative, you're gonna have to go out to bid on that anyways. You're gonna have to go rebid that.
We keep taking actions in study sessions, but
This is a special meeting. It's not a study session.
so this is a continuation of the study.
This is not even on the agenda for the regular meeting.
Right. It's not.
We could put it on. as-
Not for this week. It's too late. But we'll have to put it in December agenda.
Well, we could put it on as an emergency.
Well, you have 3 days, and the meeting's not till Thursday.
I prefer it if the board can take action, take it today. It's on the agenda.
Do what today?
If you're going to take action to reject the bids, I'd recommend you do it today.
I think it's inevitable. It sounds inevitable to me that we're going to reject the bids. So I'd make a motion that we reject the present bids and then determine a course of action.
Discussion. Again, I would say I'll support the motion, but, my understanding of this meeting today was that it was a continuation of the study session.
Yeah.
I-
It is, but we posted it as a special meeting.
Technically, we're okay.
think that's fine. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We need a motion on what course of action?
No,
Just to reject the bids. is
You're
all.
originally bids, and you're directing staff to meet with the residents on the proposed construction of the cul-de-sac. So as the board says, we'll get our ducks in a row, we'll get all the data, everything ready, we'll be ready
Yeah.
to present to the.
Yeah, we need to talk to staff and,
Yes. Yes, and we'll do a public notice, we'll notify the board when that is. We'll get all that together. It probably won't be till January anyways, right? Yeah.
We also need, if I remember right, didn't you say something about, a wedding or something? The one resident
it's in
has a
April.
wedding?
No,
April.
I-
In
No, I
April.
talked to the resident, and his wedding is in April. So there's no way we're going to impose on that wedding. Except unless we clean the station that day.
But I mean, we're not gonna start any kind of construction before April.
Oh, of course not. No way. No, never close.
Not even if we chose to do the
Exactly.
Cadillac
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
which we can't do.
So, what was the rest of the motion? You rejected bids, and because you want to follow up with the residents about constructing the pump station in the cul-de-sac.
I think in addition, we want to know, I think in addition, we should authorize, getting more firm data on what the cul-de-sac construction alternatives is, which is, I think you said it was another $20,000. So I'd make a motion that, that we continue to, continue the study of the
Alternatives?
cul-de-sac alternative, which will cost about $20,000 for Rob to locate it and do an engineer's estimate and give us better information about that alternative.
Do we need a motion for that, or was that
That'd be helpful, because we estimate $20,000 for you to prepare some preliminary designs, so you can also, get a better estimate on the cost. Also maybe look at, where we're gonna put the control panel, the generator.
Can I go back and fine tune that, please?
absolutely? The motion?
The cost
The cost.
to come up with a engineer's estimate for in the cul-de-sac.
So that you're not gonna put a dollar on it, there's instructing staff to, with the alternative? Does that work, Rob?
Yes.
That'd be fine.
I'll second it. I just wanted to say that, I wanted to see the difference, so that's what I'm asking about the
One of the things to include in that then would be what Scott had mentioned earlier, some of the odor enhancing programs that you used at Eldon included in that.
Yes. We had those in option or alternative one, so we know what those are.
Is that the Cadillac motion? I mean, option one Cadillac?
Well, we do that,
It's alternative number two.
we do that irrespective of what alternative
Alternative
we finally
one
build.
had the highest degree of odor control, the Cadillac.
What do you estimate that cost to be with the new movement of the cul-de-sac? Lower?
I have to go back.
Because I think once we get that information, then we put out the bids.
Well, no, I mean, he's gonna get that information. We can then go to the residents, because we'll have some more data, and then get their inputs, and we'll come back to the board, and get your direction to go out to bid, if that's what you wanna do.
So when do you think that might happen?
Probably not till
Go out-
February. Oh, do you want to bid? I mean, come back to the board because and we're assuming we'll probably won't go. We'll approach the residents in January. You know, December everyone's gonna be pretty crazy, busy with the holidays. So we'll approach the residents in January. Come back with the board early February, maybe next the February study session with their comments. You'll have the engineer's estimate from Rob, and then give us if that's which direction you want to go. Give us a green light. Then we'll put the bids together and go out to bid.
So it'll be probably in summer or fall before we could even get out to bid.
But we're giving Rob the okay to go and engineer it right now.
Yes, that's what. Well, yeah, yes. You're giving him the okay. He's going to come back with me with an estimate on the cost, and if you're okay with that, then we'll go with it.
Very good. Great discussion.
Mr. President, we need a vote on that second motion. Thank you.
So we have a motion to instruct staff to coordinate with Rob.
Good timing.
Plan for the pump station in the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Essentially. Okay, Marlene seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Rob, very much.
All your years of service paid off right here. You guys held the discussion to the highest level. Very good.
Thanks, Rob.
We got more.
Just out of curiosity, why was Mesa Water's logo on that one?
Because
That was
we
it.
are, that's a great question. Because we're providing water to the guys in the station area, like a fresh water supply.
Okay, it's sort of like the
Well, it was
backflow spigot that I have on my pump station.
it was one of their plans.
Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're just going to give me a few minutes so we put up the PowerPoint. Yep, that's it. Okay, let's make sure this.
You were telling Rob how to run it.
Well, it was the right dot word, so I'm just trying to.
I have a question. If you're trying to make the slides move, shouldn't you point it at the computer?
No, you don't have to.
Why would you point it at the wall? There's nothing.
I know it's not doing it, but I'll click it for you. It could be the battery.
Job security.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Board of Directors. I'm pleased to present to you a new program staff has put together we believe that will help improve the district's accountability, improve trust in the public, also help staff continuous improvements on our programs. It's called the Performance Measurement Program, and this has been widely used with municipalities throughout the United States. Unfortunately, it's not widely used in special districts, which I'm hoping to change that. I'm hoping we can get more special districts involved and participate in the performance measurement program, because I hope you'll agree after I conclude this presentation that you'll see some benefits in this program. So next slide, please. So you'll hear me a lot with quotes from Patrick Lencioni. He's written some excellent books on leaderships and teamwork. The one book he wrote that I is one of his best books. It's called The Advantage: Why Organizational Health Trumps Everything Else in Business. It's a fantastic book. He's also wrote a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So you'll see a lot of his quotes in my presentations. I think what he says is spot on. And here's one of his quotes here. It says, the only measure of a great time or a great organization is whether it accomplishes what it sets out to accomplish. Next slide, please. So we all remember this, right? Last year, John Oliver talked about special districts, which was quite entertaining, I have to admit, and humorous at times. But he did focus a lot on special districts that are outside of California. He did mention that special districts in California are being more accountable, but he did say that special districts are ghost governments. This is one of the quotes he said, that think of a special district like a cult. You can take your money, and you may not even be aware you're in one, right? But we all remember the Little Hoover Commission, right? We still have organizations out there that do not trust a lot in special districts, do not believe why special districts exist. We all recall the 2000 report they did that was very critical of special districts. And then 17 years later, the Little Hoover Commission wanted to revise or relook at that report. Thankfully, to the good work of staff at the California Special District Associations and their partnership and collaboration with Hoover staff, they actually came out with a pretty, I believe, a very positive report. And one of those reports, which was, I think, signed by the governor, one of the recommendations was that every special district has to have a website. It's amazing that there are districts out there that do not have websites, and that is one of the easiest ways to be transparent in getting your information out to the public. But as you know, there's still those doubters out there. So the questions we have to ask is this: what if we clearly communicate what we do, why we do it, and how well we do it? Wouldn't that make a difference? So think of it this way as a football, and there's another quote of Patrick Lencioni. Imagine playing or watching a football game and not knowing the score. Pretty frustrating, wouldn't it be? Can we go back? Go back. It'd be pretty frustrating, right? It's the same philosophy in your government, right? Imagine, the public trusts us on safekeeping their money and spending their money wisely and efficiently and effectively. Well, if they don't know how well you're doing, how can they trust you? How do they know what's going on? It's kind of the same philosophy. Next slide. So what is performance measurement? And this is just a really simple definition. Is defined as a regular measurement of outcomes and results which generate reliable data on the effectiveness and efficiency of programs. And I want to really hit on the last two words, effectiveness and efficiencies. You hear that a lot in government. We're the most efficient government out there. We're most effective. Well, how do you prove that? How do you demonstrate that? If you say that we are the most efficient because we spend the less per capita than other districts, is that being efficient? It really is not telling the whole story. And that's what performance measurement does. It tries to tell you the whole story. Next slide, please. So then the question is, why do you want to use it? As I mentioned, kind of the scenario, the football scenario, imagine watching a football game without knowing the score. Performance measurement, it helps communicate to the public, to you, and to staff on how well we are performing. All right? It's a tool to make changes and improve. It's a tool to continue to think of constantly making improvements. And I think the most important part of it also demonstrates open government. You always hear about being transparent and open. Well, how more open can you be is sharing your performance with the public. Next slide, please. I really like this this slide. This was actually, this is kind of ahead of the time by David Osborne and David Gabler. 26 years ago they said this, and I think it definitely applies today. And if you ask, why you want to measure, and they said if you don't measure results, you can't tell success from failure. If you can't see success, you can't reward it. If you can't reward success, you're probably rewarding failure. If you can't see success, you can't learn from it. If you can't recognize failure, you can't correct it. If you can demonstrate results, you can win public support. I think that's so true today. So how do you know you're being efficient and effective? As I mentioned before, is it just because if you're spending less than your budget, is that saying you're being efficient? If you're saying I take 100 phone calls a day, is that being effective? It's not telling the whole story. Next slide. Again, here's some of the benefits. I've been hitting on again. You'll hear me say this over and over again. It improves not only communications externally to the public, but it helps us as staff too to know where we stand. If we're not meeting the benchmark that we set out, then how do we change the way we're doing business to hit that benchmark? It reflects on citizens' demands for evidence of program effectiveness. Again, we are the safekeepers of their taxpayers' monies. They want to make sure that we're spending their money wisely. performance measurement program demonstrate that we are spending the money wisely in those programs effectively. Justifies programs and their costs. I talk about improves accountability. It gives this gives staff the data we need to improve performance, and then most importantly, it builds public trust. Next slide. I thought this was very important too. The last 7-8 years, transparency has been the key word in public, right? And really, it's been focusing on salaries. You know, what are staffs making? What's the board making? And that's all important. But I think what a lot of organizations are missing is the other half of that transparency, and that's called operational transparency, right? And this is a quote by Harvard Business School study, which I think is very true. Operational transparency in government services. Seeing the work the government is doing, well, it results express more positive attitudes towards government and greater support for maintaining and expanding the scale of government programs. And here's another from PM Magazine, was Public Management Magazine. They say when you have performance plus accountability plus transparency plus engagement equals trust. Next slide, please. What it's not a way, we're not using this to reprimand staff. I do not believe in that. Because what happens if the employees are not hitting their benchmark and they're going to get reprimanded in their performance evaluation, what are they going to do? They're going to inflate the numbers, right? Because who wants to get in trouble? No one wants to get in trouble. They're going to inflate the numbers, and now you have bad data. And now it's worthless. And we don't want bad data. So we're not going to reprimand employees for not achieving desired results. If the results are not achieved, then we go back to the drawing board and say, what are we doing now? What can we do differently to change the results? It's definitely not easy. There's a lot of work putting into this. That's probably why you don't see a lot of special districts doing it, because it's not easy. And it's not intended to address every possible equity measure, which I call widgets. I've seen performance measurement programs where they're measuring hundreds and hundreds of different programs and performances, and it just demoralizes staff. It's just a lot, too much, and it's really not. You don't need to tell all those widgets. You just need to find the right measures, which is in the next slide here by Patrick Lencioni. The key is always to measure the right thing. That's the important thing, and this is a working document that at times we'll change it here and then. Next slide, please. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about the different type of measures. There's 4 key measures that we're going to focus on. One is called the inputs, and that's just basically data going in to achieve an output. And there's some examples here. Go back, please. No, back. Again, back. Operating maintenance expenditures for wastewater systems, hours paid to wastewater maintenance workers. That's inputs, the input data going in to achieve an output. Next, please. Output measures, that's basically just showing how busy you are. You know, that's your work productivity, how many calls you take a day, how many engagements we have on social media. It just tells you how busy you are. Next slide. Then you got efficiencies. That's the relationship between resources used and services produced. Examples like cost per mile of wastewater pipes cleaned, the expenditures per code violations case closed, or cost per work order completed. Next slide. And then you have your outcome, and that's where you take a benchmark. That's the benchmark you're trying to achieve, and then you take the data, and that data, whatever that outcome is you measure that against the benchmark to see if it's been achieved or not. And it's basically, as this states here, it's a gauge the quality of service and the extent to which the objective is being achieved. Examples: citizens and customer satisfaction ratings, percent of sewage spilled reached surface waters, or percentage of complaints responded within 1 day. Next, please. It's a good quote by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Plans are worthless. Planning is everything. That's the truth. Next slide, please. So we created a performance measurement team, and this is the team. And we met on a regular basis, developing our measures, fine-tuning our measures, finding the right data, really trying to find a low-hanging fruit at first to collect good data. Next slide, please. And this was our objectives. Again, we want to develop meaningful outcomes, telling our story. And it has to be defendable. So in other words, if someone wants to challenge us, well, how'd you get that data? We can defend it. This is how the data was collected, and this is how we use the data. Next slide. We'll go back. It has to be short and concise. That was very important to me because I've seen performance measurement programs where they're like 500 pages long. And if you want to read something to put you to sleep, those documents are great because it's just a lot of verbiage, a lot of information, just I call it information overload, and it's just too much. And I didn't want that. I want to be short and concise where they can, when the residents see or you or residents see our measures, they know we achieved it or we did not, which goes easy to read. And then it has to be ongoing monitoring and evaluations. Next slide. So these are the questions we ask ourselves when we're evaluating our measures. What happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? Was this the most efficient use of resources? How effective was the effort? And how can we improve the results? We ask these questions of ourselves as the team when we're evaluating the measures. Next question. Or next slide. So what are we trying to achieve? The next one. So the team came up with 6 attributes. And if we believe we can, the efficiencies, effective workforce, customer satisfaction, cost effectiveness, citizen engagement, transparency, we can do all those 6 attributes very well, then we're an organization of excellence. Next slide. So this is what a performance measurement will look like. So you have here on the top is your attributes. This is the effective workforce attribute, and what we say is recruit and retain a highly engaged, effective workforce. And then we explain to the public and to you why that's important. High-performing and engaged workforce will achieve desired results and move the organization forward to achieving its mission. Then we have our measures here that tie into the attributes. This is our goal, what we're trying to achieve. And then these are our outcomes. We go 3 years out. And we do it by calendar year, but we do have some on fiscal year. And the reason why we do a calendar year is because we'd like to give you that in-year report. End of the year, we do that in-year report and all of our achievements. So we stick it to the calendar year. We can go fiscal year if we want to, but we're going to try calendar year this time. And then when I talk about short and concise, I want you or the public to know that we either achieved it or not. That's why we have the color-coded. So red obviously means we didn't achieve it. Yellow means it hasn't achieved, but we're getting there. We're on the right progress. And then green, it means we achieved it. And then we have a trend here where thumbs up means, yeah, we're doing good. We're doing the right work. Thumb down means, maybe we need to look at that again. And then we do a little analysis here. We'll either explain why the goal was not achieved, or in this case, we explain what's an EMOD. If you're not in the insurance industry, most people don't know what an EMOD is. And so we want to explain what it is and why that's important and why we want to measure that. Next slide, please. This is a famous quote from a Spanish philosopher. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Next slide. And so now we also put in our report some historical trends, 5-6 years. Now this was, when we presented this to the CAC, the Citizens Advisory Committee, we didn't have these bar charts or graphs. But as I mentioned earlier, this is a continuing work in progress. We're going to continually revise the measures so we can tell our whole story. But this is a good one to demonstrate. Our goal was to have fewer than 30 hotspot locations, and you can see since 2013 we're continually going down. So that's telling us, hey, our quarterly meetings with staff and Rob about hotspots is working. We meet every 3 months, and we try to look at each hotspot and how we can eventually eliminate that hotspot. And so the progress is going well. So next slide. Next quote from Sir Winston Churchill. Go back, please. However beautiful the strategy, you should occasionally look at the results. And what that means, go to the next slide, is that all our measures are tied into our strategic plan, right? Our strategic plan is the blueprint for our success, right? We have our mission and our vision. We have our vision, what we want our community to look like. So how do we know we're getting there? Performance measurements will help us tell us that. Next slide. As I mentioned, don't be surprised when measures are revised. It's a continual work in progress. Some of the measures you'll see in the report tonight, they might be revised 6 months. We might say, hey, maybe the data is not available, we can't get the data, or maybe the data is not meaningful to us. We'll revise it. So it's a constantly work in progress. Next slide. So these are the next steps. What we'll do, we'll post the performance information on our website and on social media, so it's available to all the public. We'll discuss it in open settings. Like I mentioned earlier, we discussed it at the Citizens Advisory Committee. We're discussing it with you today. Maybe we mention it at State of the Districts event, the Citizen Environment Protection Academy. We can also talk about it there. We'll develop and adopt policy procedures. In fact, this week at your board of directors regular meeting this Thursday, there is a policy in your agenda on performance measurements for you to consider. We will submit an application to the International City County Management Association, or ICMA, for the Certificate of Excellence in Performance Management. They have a program. They recognize organizations every year on their performance measurements program. And then I believe it's very important for us to collaborate with CSDA on this, to get other organizations to use performance measurements. I know OCSD has some measures. Napa Sanitation District has a very good performance measurement program. Maybe I would like to pitch to Neil and Megan at CSDA. The three of us can do a breakout session on performance measurements and hopefully encourage others to get involved. And we can, what I call benchmark districts, where we can all collaborate together and share data. And then the last one, maybe create a dashboard. If you go to the next slide. Next slide. This is what a dashboard looks like. It's just it's a software that collects data. This is in City of Fort Collins. You can see they track measures on a quarterly basis. It's something to consider. We have to look at the price, but that's something to consider. And then lastly, just we'll conclude with this great movie. You all have seen this movie. People operate with beliefs and biases. To the extent you can eliminate both and replace them with data, you gain a clear advantage. And that concludes my presentations. And in your staff report, in your agenda, is all the measures. If you have any questions on any of the measures, I'd be happy to answer those questions. If you don't object to this program, we will, as I mentioned earlier, we will put it on our website and start promoting the program and start evaluating the measures. So.
What input did the CAC give? It's hard to give you a negative on something like this when you're measuring and, like you said, showing the accomplishments and the transparency. What did the CAC?
Yeah, they were, one thing they, if I remember correctly, they want to know what was the relationship between, like, they had a number, one of the measures we had, number of days lost due to workplace-related injuries. They didn't understand why that was an important measure, and so we had to explain to them, well, if you have a lot of employees that are injured at work and not available to work, then you don't have the productivity. You can't achieve what you're trying to achieve. And so there were some questions on the measures of how relative they are, and so we went into details on that.
You presented this to all of your staff?
Yes, we did present all the staff. Yes.
Not anybody in the spot or I don't care. Were there any negatives, or was there anything?
I think the only there's a lot of work. Again, staff's got a lot of on their plate already, and they're probably they're saying, "Oh gosh, here we go again." But I do believe this is very important for us. Important for us to demonstrate transparency, and staff gets that. Yes, it is a lot of work, and I apologize. We'll just have to manage our time. But if anything, that was probably the issue.
And then my last question was how often would you? I mean, we can all look at the website on whenever we want to get the measurement, but how often will you be reporting to us on benchmarks and things like that?
My intention is on a quarterly basis, kind of like I do with the strategic plan. So every quarterly you'll get a report on the progress we're making on the performance measurements. And then we put that on the website as well.
I assume you're going to monitor this, or you're going to run this plan?
Yes.
And each one of the individuals is going to put their input in. But are you going to give them questions for the input?
Well, no, the performance measurement team, the way I envision it, the performance measurement team will meet and we'll get all the staff, we'll gather all the data, we'll put in the measurement, and then the measurement team will meet and we'll evaluate the results. And then the performance measurement team will come up with, if we're not meeting the objectives, and the performance measurement team will come up with methods and procedures on how to improve that performance.
That team is listed on that.
Yes.
6 or 7 people.
Correct.
This is like education.
Yes.
I just had a question on the breakout. I didn't quite understand that. You need Neil and Megan for a breakout individually. just as long or did you?
No, breakout sessions, I mean, at the conferences. Yeah, I'm sorry, at the conferences. You know, you have those breakout sessions? Yeah. So I thought this might be a good breakout session for the General Manager Leadership Summit, for the conference, especially the General Manager Leadership Summit, because it really starts from the top, right? And the GM's got to support this. And if you don't get the support from the GM, then the program's not going to be successful. So definitely the GM's Leadership Summit that maybe OCSD, myself, and Napa Sanitation District can do a breakout session, because all three organizations do it a little bit differently. And there is no really right way. I know the American Water Works Association, they are really big in performance measurements, but it's different than the way I have it set up, or we have set it up. I believe in the ICMA version, the way they have to show data. So there are different ways of doing it, and I thought that would be a good opportunity to share that with other organizations.
Because I was asking this only because I'll be having a meeting on what we're going to have, and I'd be glad to push it.
That'd be great.
Really worthwhile.
Sure, absolutely.
So you would be submitting all this to them, and then I can contact.
Yeah, or definitely. I'll email Neil and Megan and just get their input. So I think this would be a good idea. Yes,
You can even say, I need to move it to the community.
absolutely. That would help. That would help.
You know, it's been years ago now, we had a strategic plan, instruction with Brent Ives and another entity, which I personally got a lot out of. But their underlying emphasis, taking us through that was, everything had to relate back, as you go through, it all had to relate back to the budget. And they would demonstrate how, they would put that one, item on the shelf and leave it there and use that as a basis. But is there anything like that in your program that relates it back to, the budget or?
Yeah, in fact, we do have one of the attributes is cost effectiveness, right? So that relates to the budget. So we do have measures that are budget related. Again, it's not we're not measuring every line item in the budget. We don't do that. It's more of a 30,000-foot type level measurement. But we do tie our measures into the budget. I'm trying to find some in here.
I'm just saying that it could be of use to us, if it was, bringing that way,
So use for you, and just some clarification, how the measure is tied into the budget?
I'll say if one of your categories you're analyzing, and what effect is that going to have on the budget?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Entertaining that movement.
Yeah, and we can definitely put that in our analysis. We can put that in our analysis. How does that impact the budget? Yes, absolutely.
Myself as a board member, it would be helpful for me
Okay.
to see that.
Great. Good. Thank you. Good comment.
Comments for staff?
No, I think it's a wonderful program. I think Union Sanitary District does this, Napa probably does it. The Bay Area, Special Districts probably do it. I would just caution you to, pick out the most important. I was going to say low-hanging fruit, but pick out the most important objectives, that the agency faces,
Yeah.
and go into the program relatively slowly. I wouldn't try to, measure all of the potential parameters. you know, it's an admirable process, but it could be a large burden, a huge burden on staff.
And I'm definitely cognizant of that. That's, you saw my presentation. I do not want to measure everything under the sun. And you're right. I do not want this to be a burdensome on staff. Agreed. So, yeah, we're definitely aware of that.
Burden on staff, but minimize it.
Okay, good. Yes.
And, and then get some results that are important to us, and then build on the program.
Duly noted. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And you'll be bringing this to us Thursday night for approval?
No, it's just worry for your information. If I don't see any, if you approve it, you'll have your first report next year in the quarterly report. Probably in January. I'll give you your first report in January.
Was the staff report says that the board of directors direct staff to bring this item back for November 29th?
Do I have it on the November 29th agenda?
I'd have to look again.
What's that?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected then. And if it's in there, then yes, then I'll bring it back.
Do you have the measures already in mind?
Yeah, the measures they're in your staff report. They're in the report. So yes.
I probably read it a month ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, you know what? I stand. You know what? What's on? If I remember correctly, what's in the agenda is one of the policies. So that's it's a policies that you'll be considering for Thursday. I don't think it's actual this report, but if you adopt that policy, then it's basically saying yes, you approve the program. So. Okay. Okay.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Rob.
may I have permission to leave?
Oh, yeah. You have to stay here. You have to stay.
I wanted to stay.
Get out of here.
I'd love to stay, but
No, Rob.
the emails are piling up. Thank you.
Anybody have any objection to Rob?
No, I should have left a long time ago.
All right, Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was we forgot to place this on your October. We forgot to put this on your October agenda, so we're just bringing it back to you today for your review. No action needed. It's just really for your review and comments.
Any questions on that? Again, I think we did talk about it a little bit. Item 6, I just want to reiterate that it was overwhelming. They did not want us to even look at term limits. So, one member still, and I apologize publicly for some comments that she interpreted the wrong way. But it was interesting that while we haven't, I think it's inevitable that someone's going to hit us with term limits. They did it to the school board in the last election. It was overwhelmingly approved by the public. But it's interesting to hear the comments from our CAC saying, forget it. So, okay, then let's go to item 4.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was requested by the board to place this item on the agenda. Discuss appointment of board officers. This is just really for discussion. You're not taking any action as far as appointing or approving your officers until the elections are certified. And do we know when those are going to be? The elections?
Beginning of December.
Beginning of December. So once the election is certified, then we'll place this on the agenda. But according to our code, we can't take action on this until the elections are certified.
So
This is just really for discussion of which.
this will be at the December, or the study session in December?
What's that special December for?
That's the city. When do we have to certify our?
We receive the certified results from the county, so that should be the first week of December.
But we're scheduled for the first Friday in December for swearing in,
Unless we don't receive the certified results.
which happens a couple of years ago. Okay. So essentially, this is just, again, without, trying to say what you just said, so there's really nothing we can do with this right now.
It's just an open discussion of who do you want to consider appointing president, vice president. Who do you want to officer. You're not going to take action, but it's just open discussion.
Any discussion? Absolutely.
I just like to say that I think Mike, you did a hell of a job in the last 4 years. And, typically,
2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, believe me, I will be the first one to second your motion on that because, it, it's always good for new leadership and I think we do need that new leadership, we need some changes, so. The one thing I would recommend when we discuss officers on, whenever we do it, we really need an assistant secretary position for them,
No, my recommendation is not.
just the three.
I think it should be just two directors.
Okay, is that, you okay with that? Can we, doing away with the assistant secretary part?
We did
I
that.
remember why we did it, and I don't think we need to worry about that. So essentially, we won't be discussing officers this Thursday night.
No.
So we will, at the study session, can we do that? Or do we need to wait till the December meeting?
We can place it on the study session, but it's typically just handled at the board meeting.
So we would, at the board meeting?
So this would be the discussion,
Okay.
and then we would make those official appointments at the board meeting in December.
Well, the motions and seconds would all be at the December meeting.
Correct.
And they would take over at that point.
Correct.
Good, that sounds good.
Like, Yeah, I think we should review the policy. The policy probably says 2-year term limits, and they also probably give a time, an appropriate time for when to do it.
Can you do that and get it?
That occurs at the board meeting in December.
Yeah.
But this is just preliminary discussions as to,
We should look at, I'd like us to look at, like you said, let's look at the policy for the study session, just have a quick report on what the policy says so we can.
I believe it's up to us what we want to do, 1 or 2 terms,
Yeah.
2 years.
Well, let's see what the policy,
Usually 2 years is.
2 years.
Because it takes 1 year to get your feet wet, and the next year you feel more comfortable.
Okay. Any more discussion on that?
Oh, we could just use Mike's shoes for whoever needs to get their feet wet. Then they could hit the road running, because you're not gonna.
Seriously, all four of you have been president of this organization. So
I know.
Okay, so then we'll take a look at it at the study session and take the action in December. Everybody okay with that? All right. Oral communications and director comments. One comment I was gonna make was about the assistant secretary. Scott, this thing with Mr. Meterhood and your Belinda Water District and the LAFCO executive team, this is gonna be up to you guys, the new executive committee of LAFCO, that how comfortable are you with where we sit and what we pay our LAFCO dues? Are you comfortable with the levels now? Do we need to be, I understand his comments about Irvine, he wants to nail Irvine Ranch, Santa Margarita, and a couple of others, get them to pay a bigger dues. I mean, he's really pressing this thing. Where do you think we stand?
I think he makes a legitimate argument. I think if you compare our budget, $11 million budget, and we pay almost $21,000 in fees to LAFCO, and you got MoDOC, who's got a $200 million budget, and they're paying the same fees as we are. And Irvine's got over a $100 million budget, and they're paying the same fees. And so they got some of these big budget districts that are paying the same LAFCO fees as we are. Yeah, I think they make a good argument. So my understanding is that LAFCO Council is looking into this because they could be violating the Knox-Cortese Act. We're waiting to hear back from the council and see what they'll do. Really, it's up to the special districts. I think they'll just kick it back to ISDOC and just get it done. But yeah, it makes good arguments. We'll wait and see what they say.
Just be prepared for
Yeah, definitely.
When are those dues due?
We already paid them. Yeah, they're due in the beginning of the year, beginning of the fiscal year.
So this would be for the following year?
The other comment, I was thinking about this the other day. We haven't had a joint meeting with Midway City in a couple of years, and they're going to have 3 new directors, I think, this time. Right? That voted out. Yeah.
Well, no, but 2 of them were incumbents, right?
Margin only incumbent.
Oh, I haven't looked at that data recently.
So we'll talk to Ken and see if we
Need help out of it?